Kenty Blitz for your Tuesday. Adam Peacock alongside Paul Kent, obviously Warren Livingston. I think he's onto the pina coladas now over there in Hawaii, Kenty.
Oh, well, it's not doing any good.
Let's get to it, and let's get to... We spoke about Queensland yesterday, about this spirit, and you've come across some exclusive intel about what they're actually doing behind the scenes to just build that narrative ahead of Origin 3.
Yeah, we spoke yesterday... obviously about the Queensland myth building and how Billy is, he dives so heavily into it. He speaks to it. They constantly refer to it, and then I sort of merged that into a little story about Mal Meninga talking about triggers and things to rely on during the game. And now overnight, obviously, I've spoken to a couple of people about what Queensland have done this year, what Billy's been doing, and we spoke about how. Come game 2 in Perth, which they won, underdogs and won. They leant back on the 1995 team, which is in their 30th anniversary. I think they've had about their 58th reunion this week, that team. I tell you what, they can party, those guys.
I bet they can.
And I tell you what, every time they go in, they've got a group chat, and every time they go in there, there's another lunch or something organised. But in Perth, just a couple of weeks back for game 2, inside the dressing room before the game, the Queenslanders all turned up, and what they found was in their little cubicle, their little locker area where they get changed. And now, if anybody's ever seen what happens in these dressing rooms, they put up like placards of their name and things like that, and just sort of stuff to make it all feel very family oriented and all the rest of it. But within the Queensland one for game 2 were the photos, which we'll show here on YouTube, of the players from the 1995 team.
Yeah. So
the players went in, and for example, Tom Dearden went in, looked at his little cubicle, and there was a big photo of Adrian Lamb, who was he was running out as halfback for Queensland. There's a photo of Adrian Lamb in a big poster-like photo in his dressing room, and every player had the corresponding position or number that they had back then, and that was the theme that Billy had run throughout camp for game 2, and that was the way that they I suppose, galvanised for this game in Perth, just to sort of lean back on the spirit of 1995 and get going. And look, it's funny, because I don't know, I'm interested to hear what you think about this, but New South Wales don't quite have that sort of that attachment to older teams, like the former teams. Queensland do. It's a bit like chicken and egg, though. What comes first? Does the team have to come first and then you find the attachment to it, or do you build the attachment to it through later years? But either way, Queensland have done I thought it was a really nice touch, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Hearn, he's immortalised there for Mo Fotuaika in the last game. It was good to see. You can imagine, though, Ruben Cotter, and hopefully he knows his rugby league history, he walks in there and looking back at him is the axe. Trevor Gilmeister. Yeah. And in that 95 series, that's stuff of rugby league legend, what he did, and off his sick bed and everything like that. Well, so it has to make them feel a bit bigger. And
that's one of the great stories, isn't it? 1995, Trevor Gilmeister's in hospital with a blood infection. Queensland need him, gets a phone call, mate, we need you. And the doctor says, mate, if you go and play, you could die. And the response was... there's no place I'd rather die than in a Queensland jersey playing Origin. So he got out of his hospital bed and off he went. Yeah. And look, I think it's just magnificent. We had a bit of a Billy G's we're over it yesterday moment. But just to see how deeply they believe in it and how well they do it when they're not sort of shoving it down our throats. And this was their little private moment. To be fair, I'm not sure whether it's intended to get out into the public sphere, but we've got it here now. Yeah. But I thought it was a really nice touch, and even like Kurt Mann goes in and he finds Ben Ikin with his 4 games of NRL experience back then in his locker. So he's now the boss of the Queensland Rugby League, obviously Benny. But just a really nice touch. I thought that the players went in there and found that their corresponding position, big poster of them, just to remind them that was their trigger. Just remind you, look what these guys did against all the odds in 1995. You guys are capable of it tonight. And nice message, and just the way it was delivered. It was subtle. It was private. It was not supposed to be sort of advertised, but it was a really nice touch.
I don't mind it because it's one of those things that if you win the game, you look on it and go, that helped. But if you lose the game, it's like, well, it wasn't that wasn't the reason. It was something else.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you go out and you win the game, and you come back and you sit there in the dressing room after that, and those players who played the other night, who won that game in Perth, suddenly feel like they're part of that whole Queensland story.
Yeah.
Which is an ongoing story. Gets new chapters get added every year. But certainly if they win this game coming up in Sydney now, it will definitely go down as one of the years in future times when people look back on this Queensland aura of what they do. It'll be one of those. The 2025 series will be one that gets remembered as well.
Well, Queensland have got, obviously, they can immortalise 1980. They can immortalise 1995. They can immortalise the 8 in a row.
89 is another one where they lost. Bob Linder broke his leg. Alan Langer broke his leg. They were down to, they were busted. They finished the game with 12 men and still beat New South Wales. Like, there's all sorts of. Yeah, they've got a lot of them. They've got a lot of them, Queensland, and they make sure which I really like. They make sure they don't forget them either.
What about New South Wales then? I was just thinking, what would they immortalise? Is it maybe 2000 when they put 50 on them? And you got Brian Fletcher doing that given Sunday celebration.
No, I think that New South Wales ones. I think 94 was a big year. That they really dominated that year. It was not a 3-0 series. It was a 2-1 series, but it was such a good team. And I think 94 might have lost the first game and won the next two, which is a big thing. And obviously 2005 was another one. They lost the first game when Brett Kamali threw that intercept pass for Matt Bowen right at the end of game one up at Suncorp, and then they went and played Game 2 in Sydney, and then Game 3 they went back to Suncorp, won the series there, which was a big effort. And then obviously they've had a few. The one they probably blew the chance on, I think, was during COVID when all 3 games were played in Queensland, and it would have been a nice little thing to have for New South Wales to win all 3 games in Queensland. Yeah. Instead, I think they probably got a little bit ahead of themselves after winning the series and just gave Game 3 away. And the unfortunate part about that was it's not something that'll really ever happen again. So it's not like there'll ever be 3 games in Queensland again. Yeah. So that would have been something that they could have forever held over Queensland as, well, for all you've done, you've never done this. But anyway, look, we move on. But I just thought it was a really nice touch from the Maroons.
Bolters. We love an Origin Bolter, and we got one here. So we got Gemma Shibasaki, who we talked about him yesterday, the train and trial. 45 games later, he's playing Origin.
He spoke this morning, didn't he? Yeah, he was really nice.
Where does he rank in Origin Bolter?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he spoke this morning, and he right now is still on a train and trial contract with the Broncos, so he's still earning only $80,000. Wow! Right now, he's going to earn
half his salary playing this game.
Yeah,
on July 9.
Yeah. Well, he gets $30,000 for this, doesn't he? Yeah, and it's it's just a wonderful story. He came back to the he's a bit of a journeyman. He made his debut in 2018. Now, since 2018, he's only played 45 games. Now, that's not a lot given how many years that's been. He started out at the Broncos. He went to, I think it was the Cowboys next. Then he went to the Rabbitohs. He had a little bit of Japanese rugby thrown in there. He's ended up back, Newcastle in there as well. And then he's ended up back at the Broncos. And he basically turned up saying, look, just give me a start. Let me go. And I think he was looking to sort of play a little bit of Queensland Cup, hopefully pick up a little bit of cash on the side to complement his wage as a youth counsellor. But obviously, Mike Maguire's liked what he's seen out of him and has put him in first grade. He's had a really strong season, obviously, and out of that, he's just come through now. And he's the lack of expectation, I suppose, when he was named in the team. And thought he was just there to make up the numbers, and Billy said, "No, mate, you're actually starting." Look, it's just wonderful, and. He is a big bolter from the point of view he's 26. I went through and had a look at a few other bolters, and we can have a chat about them. And there's a lot of them there for different reasons. Brad Fittler obviously was an early one. He was picked at 18 to play for New South Wales after just 12 NRL games.
That's where he picked up the nickname Fred, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jack Gibson. Yeah, 1990, I think it was. Jack Gibson. That was Jack's way. Jack was very clever. So Freddie came in with a big boom, okay, a lot of hype around him, and everybody knew him. And then initially his nickname at the very start was Adolf. Adolf Hitler. So
probably want to drop those, wouldn't you?
yeah, but league players being league players. But not everyone. It didn't really catch on, to be fair. But Jack, when he got into Origin, and back then the selectors picked the team. Jack didn't have. He had a little bit of a say, not the entire say though. But they picked Freddie. And just to sort of put him in place as the young kid with the boom reputation, just pretend that he didn't know his name, which is a real old school Sydney thing. You know, mate, what's your name? Mate, Freddie, come over here. And that was it. Freddie stuck. And obviously, look, anybody that saw Brad Fittler play as a kid, though, and in his teenage years, knew he was destined for something special. 12 games, though, not a lot of experience, but he did a tremendous job. Who else we got there?
Philip Duke.
Philip Duke's another sort of bolter. A lot of people forget Philip Duke. He sort of has an infamous moment in Origin history. He was picked from New South Wales country, for people who don't know. So back in the day when City played country as a sort of trial game, I suppose, or a precursor to the Origin series, which didn't happen in Queensland, only happened in New South Wales at that point. Philip Duke played a wowzer of a game for the country team, was picked on the wing for New South Wales. Now, that all sort of went pear-shaped when he threw a pass in goals, Queensland scored, win the game, and Philip Duke, poor bugger, was never seen again. But again, never played NRL football. Played State of Origin, but never played a top-flight rugby league game for a Sydney club. So that's a pretty big one too. That's
as big as a bolter you get.
I think so, yeah. Look, and it's not like he came from nowhere and disappeared to nowhere, basically, poor bugger.
Poor guy. At least his nephew's still on television.
Jake Duke, that's his nephew. So, Jakey's doing well.
Yeah. So you got Lindsay Johnston, Willie Kahn, Kerrod Walters.
Well, you look at the games, though, Adam, you look at him here, so Lindsay Johnson was a North Sydney front rower. He's 19 years old, picked in his 18th game. He only played 40-odd games in the NRL, disappeared. So he came in after his 19th game, he didn't reach 50 games, and he was gone again. So for him to get picked to play front row for New South Wales back in the 80s, that was a big go. Willie Kahn after 6 games, but Willie Kahn, like a few of these bolters, although it was only 6 games, he had the talent that everyone saw bigger things in him.
You just knew.
You just knew he was going to be okay. So it's probably just a matter of time till he got there. Now, yes, might have been a little bit ahead of his time. He got picked, I think, 1990 was his first series. He came in, but he went on to have a pretty distinguished career, Willie Kahn. Kerrod Walters was another shock. He came in after 14 games, replaced Greg Kinescu, but then took to it like a duck to water and made Origin his own until his brother came in and took the job off him. So Steve Walters came in. But obviously, the king of it all, I suppose, is Ben Ikin.
Yeah, he's on the podium, isn't he?
Well, look, I think Philip Duke's in there, and I obviously think Ikin, depending on which way you want to lean, Ikin after 4 NRL games was picked. He was such a surprise Ikin that when he was chosen, back in those days, they just read it out on the radio or the news. They didn't get phone calls beforehand to say, look, you're in the team. And so everybody used to sit around, and he was playing with a couple of other Gold Coast players at the time, and they sat down to see what Queensland were going to do in this 1995 series because they basically had no one to pick. And as they get through the team, 14 Ben Ikin, his phone rings straight away. It's his father on the phone. Doesn't say, mate, congratulations. He says, is there 2 Ben Ikins in Queensland?
That's a beauty.
And he says, no, there's only one. Oh. And his father was just in shock, hung up, and had to ring back again because he was just so shocked by it. But that was a wonderful story. But, it's a funny one, isn't it? There's
I've got Duke, Ikin, and Shibasaki for the drawn-out build-up to this. Yeah. With not a lot of games on the podium, those three.
Shibasaki, and that's, I think, the funny thing about it, though, is you look at the way he's played. Now, we don't know whether he's going to mark up against Crichton or Latrell, okay? We don't know what Billy Slater's going to do. Sometimes they play a little bit of ducks and drakes and sort of swap them over. They've done that with the wingers as well. So we don't know how they're going to match up just yet. But he has played against them at the NRL level, and he's done pretty well. Like obviously, Latrell's playing fullback when he plays there, but I don't think there's a concern or a worry over him like there probably was with a few of those other guys that were Origin bolters, so to speak. Yeah. Like Ikin was just turned 18. I would have been terrified at 18 to run out in that game.
This guy's been through a bit, so you'd imagine he's equipped for it. But I did note that Billy said in his press conference yesterday, one of the first things he said was he's been a really good defender this year.
Yeah.
So
that's
these decisions they've got to make.
Well, that's
on that
what he's
edge.
looking for. Like what Billy's going to be looking for in him is firstly how he defends more than attack, but then he's going to look at his habits off the ball. Just how he defends when the ball's not right in front of him and when it's not his choice to make, so to speak, and how he supports his teammates defensively. What he's just those things that as fans we tend to follow the football, and we only sort of know what happens with whoever's got the football. But the coaches, they're looking at back play, they're looking at people, what they're doing around the ball, they're looking at who's making the decoy runs, all that sort of business. And Shibasaki comes up big on that area. Physically, he certainly matches it. Like, he's just a weapon. So physically, that's not going to be an issue. And I just think, what we heard this morning with his interview and how he spoke so, I think, eloquently about it all, you just can't help but cheer for the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's get to some NRL news around the place. So the Warriors, I mean, what does it mean for their premiership hopes with poor old Luke Metcalf, who's built himself up into one of the best halves in the competition, doing his ACL again?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt the Warriors have been the surprise packet all year, haven't they? Them and the Canberra Raiders. And a lot of what the Warriors have done this season has been built on the back of Metcalf, who's just done a really superb job of guiding the team around the park. Just played really solid footy, but he's also been able to have that little bit of flourish on top of doing those individual things that have made people take notice, and have benefited the Warriors considerably. And out of that, we've seen, Metcalf was leading the Dally M's before it went behind closed doors. Okay, so that's the sort of season he was having. Yeah. And we were getting to the point where we were just starting to go, you know what? Like, after 6 rounds, they're going okay. After 8 rounds, they're going okay. We're at the point now halfway through the season, what is it, round 17 or 18, whatever it is, and we're sitting there and we're going, you know what, these guys are the real deal. They're not going away, and they're going to sit there and they're going to be in they're going to be in the fight at the end of the season. Now I'm not so sure though. It's how you replace him. Andrew Webster's he's a very good coach, and he coaches a style that's not heavily reliant on one player or one thing happening. So he will have a plan. But Metcalf has just been playing so well, and the Warriors look just so comfortable playing in that system with each other and playing the system that Webster wants, which Metcalf was running. He was the guy putting it all together, and that's if he's the one guy the Warriors wouldn't have wanted to fall over this season, and unfortunately for them, confirmation today that it's a ruptured ACL, season over. He's going to be in a fight to sort of be ready for the start of next season. It's really disappointing for him. Yeah, I don't know where they go, and I don't know if they'll get the answer this week or straight away, so to speak. Yeah, I think it might take a little bit of trial and error. Let's have a look at this guy. Let's have a look at this guy. I also talked to Chance Nickel-Clockstad. He's also got a bit of a ACL. We don't know how bad that is as well. But if he goes down for any period of time, that's going to be another kick in the guts for the poor old Warriors.
Selwyn Cobbo. So we'll find out over the next couple of weeks about how he's handling all the the talk about him. I don't know how much attention a player like Selwyn Cobbo pays to everyone have an opinion about Selwyn Cobbo, but he's sorted his immediate future at the least. What are you expecting from his footy?
Well, it looks like he's going to get a bit of a shot to play this week with Origin and all the rest of it, and he's got to get the chance to sort of go out and show his way. The concerning thing about that, often when we all jump on the bandwagon, what's going on here, what's the problem? The concerning part about that was that there's been sort of more revelations over the weekend about how he's just, he likes to stay up all night playing video games, which impacts his following day, which means he's missed training sessions, he's missed buses that they've had to get. People have had to go and wake him to get him out of bed because he just has that young person's allure to the video games where they just cannot. It's always like, I'll just go for 5 more minutes. You know what I mean? Like we've all got kids that happens to, right?
Exactly.
5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and suddenly it's 4 a.m. And so I can understand the Broncos' reticence to really give him big dollars.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when people came out and they said, oh, it's insulting to offer him 300 when he's on 650, let me just flip that around a bit. When Dylan Brown was offered $1.2 million to go to the Warriors, to the Knights, a lot of ex-NRL players, people defending Dylan Brown, come out and said, well, mate, you're worth what people are willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they defended him getting so much money from the Warriors. It happens in reverse too.
Mm.
Now, if you're not doing your job there, which he wasn't, there's no doubt he can play. There's no doubt he's got talent. But I think Selwyn's problem right now is Selwyn. Okay, it's not Michael Maguire as the coach. It is Selwyn sitting there and not doing those little 1%ers that you need to do to earn. Like, he's earning more money than Prime Minister right now. With your job comes responsibility. With that wage comes responsibility.
Yeah.
And he just hasn't aimed up. So I can understand Broncos doing that. It's going to be interesting to see how he closes out the season before he joins the Dolphins next year.
It's probably as well the perfect storm for Selwyn is the fact that at the same time you got Shibasaki coming in, doing what he's done on minimum wage.
On $80,000 a year, looking for an upgrade.
And just giving absolutely everything he can to get the most out of a footy career that perhaps 12 months ago he thought, where is this going?
Yeah, if I was Michael Maguire, I'd be terming them up as training partners. Yeah, just let them talk. I don't know how they get on. I'm sure there's not a problem there. But I'd like Cobbo to just sit there and say, this is a guy who's wandered around the rugby league landscape since 2018. That's 7 years. And in 7 years, he's averaged 7 games a season. Not even that, just under 7 games a season. But he's finally got his chance. He's making it the most of it. He will this next week. And Cobbo, it did come. He's already played for Australia. He's already played for Queensland. But if he doesn't get himself sorted fairly soon, it won't happen again.
Sharkies. So they got the weekend off.
Yep.
What do they need over the weekend off? The stick or the carrot from Fitzy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fitzgibbon.
They had their talk last week. They supposedly had their honesty session, and it didn't really result in much. So it didn't really get the impact that Craig Fitzgibbon was looking for. The problem I think Fitzy's in at the moment, and I don't like sort of going down this because everyone's Nico bashing, okay? But Nico's just not doing the job at halfback, okay? Now, people offer, maybe he needs to go to fullback. Well, Will Kennedy's doing a pretty good job there. It doesn't deserve to lose his spot. They were best, I think, last year when Trindle was running the side. He still wore 6, but they had him as first receiver. They probably need to go back there. But I will say, if they do that this year, it will be recognised straight away that Trindle's gone back to the primary shot caller, which will then just increase the talk around Nico. It's a real issue. But we thought during this Origin period would be the time that Cronulla would make their move on the ladder. They've had no players lost to Origin representation. Okay, so obviously they've had their buys and that through like other clubs have. But they also were running out a full complement of players during this 6-week Origin period.
And they had one comeback win over the Dragons, and that's it.
Yeah,
for it.
But they've also fallen out of the 8th.
Yeah.
They were sitting at 5th spot, I think, coming into the Origin period, and now they're back in 10th.
They gone? They're going to make the finals?
I don't think they can. Things would have to change drastically. What's happened is the sides that were out of the 8, Penrith, the Roosters, they're all starting to come good.
Dolphins.
They're starting to come good. So while the Sharks aren't getting better and their football's not improving, they've fallen out of the 8. This period that was a golden period for them to sort of make a move on the ladder and to really cement themselves in the top 8, they've actually fallen out of the 8. And they're doing this while those other clubs, and you can't see Penrith or the Roosters suddenly falling over. It's not like they're in a rich vein of form and it'll just all disappear. They are very consistent teams. So I think the Sharks, they've got a real issue now. They're going to have to go back and, rather than an honesty session between the players, they might need one between the coach and players. And I mean a few one-on-ones where a few home truths get revealed, because at the moment they're not turning it around, and it's a real concern if you're a Sharks fan.
Tallyn Silva, a bit more about him. So
I've got to make a correction there. So yesterday we said
a little asterisk correction down the bottom.
Mate,
it happens.
Yeah, I was talking about him being managed by Isaac Moses and all the rest of it. I had it in my head, Isaac Moses. I got him mixed up with Jareem Buller, who is managed by Moses.
Yeah.
And, as you go, I thought about it later. I thought, hang on, did I get that right? And anyway. We got that wrong. He wasn't managed by Moses. He's actually managed by Mario Tartak. But it's interesting to see how Shane Richardson has now come out and explained why they let him go, that he didn't want to sit behind him. I found that interesting. Now, they've got a kid called Jared Haywood, who's a couple of years younger, who is the Australian schoolboys captain hooker. Now, I think in the Tigers' plans, they're sitting there going, okay, well, if we let De Silva go, we hang on to Coruscant for 2-3 more years, hopefully 3 years if they can stretch it out to 4, however it goes, and then give this Jared Haywood, time to come through. They might have a guy there anyway. It's fascinating. Now, I remember years and years and years ago, Neil Whittaker was captain of Balmain, and there was a kid coming through there he was a Balmain captain and hooker. There was a kid coming through there. He actually went to the club and said, look, you can't hold him back anymore. Even though I'm club captain, don't pick me, pick him. Now, that was Benny Elias. But this is the other part to it, though, Adam, so Benny Elias came in, as we know, played for Australia, toured with Australia, played for the Blues, all the rest of it, and became Hall of Fame player, okay? But at the same time, he was dominating that hooking position at Balmain. After him came another little player, good little hooker, called Michael Brown. Now, this is back in the day when players didn't move clubs and certainly didn't do what they do now, which is see someone as a roadblock in front of them, so just want out and go to another club. Yeah. Michael Brown played basically his entire career at Balmain. Played a fraction of the first grade games he should have played.
But in Reggie's.
In reserve grade.
He was good enough to play other clubs?
He was even sitting behind Benny. He was a bit of a Benny clone in many ways. And he played 10 years or so at Balmain. And for some of those years, he would have been third or fourth best hooker in the game.
Oh, wow.
But because he just was at a club where Benny was there, he couldn't get past Benny. He got a chance when Benny go to Origin, or he got a chance when Benny was injured, but just did not play a lot of first-grade football. And so it's interesting to just see how times have changed too. Now you get a player in front of you and you just go, well, mate, I want an opportunity to get me out of the club.
Well, that's what happens, I suppose, with a $10, $11 million salary cap. The riches are at other clubs if you get that opportunity, if you're good enough. The riches for the players are at other clubs, and clubs probably don't want to be spending money on players that play in reserve grade, so they won't offer them that money, even though they have talent. But so De Silva's moved on there. It still is a concern for me. Although I got it wrong yesterday regarding the manager, it still is a concern for me that the Tigers are putting so much into the next period as opposed to their long-term welfare. De Silva. I know I just spoke about Jared Haywood coming through, but by all reports, De Silva is the more talented player and will probably have the more successful NRL career. A lot can happen. Haywood's only a kid; he can improve significantly. We don't know, but right now, if you're making a choice between the two players right now, you would have stuck with De Silva. Which is why I wouldn't envy anyone trying to manage a cap, because you look, okay, for instance, the team that's had the most success in the history of rugby league, arguably, in Penrith in the last 4 years, they've obviously identified a long time ago that it was Edwards, Cleary, Yeo are the three must-not losers.
Yeah, and Liam Martin.
Liam Martin, but the rest kind of has to, and it was hard for them to say no to Jerome Luai. I understand they put up on the whiteboard when Jerome Luai had that offer from the Tigers, it was, this is your cap in 3 years' time if Luai stays, and this is your team in 3 years' time if he goes. And it was like, we love the guy, but we just can't. Whereas the Tigers, they don't have that back catalogue of success, but they're still having to make these decisions, and they're really difficult.
But the thing is about the Tigers is they've got so many good kids that have come through, and they're losing them. That's the issue. They've got a lot of their most talented players are leaving. Yeah. That's the issue. They're not hanging on to those guys, and then they're getting guys in who are NRL journeymen. And you're paying overs to get
good
them there.
Players to get there.
And I'm sort of staggered that they're not prepared to pay overs to keep some of those guys who've come through the system. That's the issue. That said, you talk about what Penrith did. Penrith's production line is so good. They had anticipated Luai would go. So they went into their system. They identified a young kid. They said, this is the kid. When Luai is ready to be picked off us and he's going to get paid top dollar, which is what West Tigers have now done, when he is, we have this kid, he will be ready to come in and just slot straight into his spot. Now, that kid was Katoa, who's now the halfback at the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Where they lost him, sadly, but Wayne Bennett recognised what Penrith were doing, got in really early when Katoa was still a kid, offered him way overs to leave Penrith, which was basically, Penrith at the time, they couldn't offer him the same money as the Dolphins because it would have put him into their top 30, brought him into their salary cap and all the rest of it. So they simply could not match the offer. So Bennett sort of got in early before the Panthers had a chance to safeguard him.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was the kid that they'd identified. Now, you imagine bringing Katoa in the side now with Luai out.
Oh, my goodness.
And he comes in and he's playing in the half. That's why they've gone out and got Talangi because they'd lost Katoa. They needed someone. So it's a real science to it all. And Penrith are doing it really, really well. Obviously, Phil Gould's taken them, he put the system in place at Penrith. He's now doing it at Canterbury. And they're going to come along nicely as well. You look at the Raiders, they've done a very similar. They can't attract players, certainly top flight players. People just say Canberra's too cold, don't want to move there. But you watch what they've done. They went and invested in their juniors. They've brought them through. And Canberra always thought next year would be a better year than this year. Now, obviously, they're leading the competition at the moment. For Raiders fans, hopefully that's true. But just given the ages and the development of those players, they thought next year would be better. But they've come on so quickly, these guys. They're playing with such confidence and disregard, I suppose, in many ways, that they've come through this year. So that's good. But it certainly shows the way that teams get off the ladder, get bottom of the ladder and come through. Tigers still haven't quite figured it out, the poor buggers.
Couple of quick hits. Victor Radley, he's taken a break. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, the one thing we don't know about these injuries is how long they take to recover yet. We've spoken about that, and we have seen players in the past who continually get knocked out, and they just become more and more susceptible to concussions.
Well, you've spoken about this, that there's muscle memory on knockouts.
Muscle memory, yeah. And so I think it's a great idea to just let him just rest. He shows no indications of any sort of damage there, so that's the hard part to say. But I think it's really responsible of the Roosters to just say, look, you know what, mate, take a couple more weeks and sit down and we'll see when you get back.
Late last week, it was after you did Blitz last week, but Anthony Seibold got the big wide lens out in how he was handling all the heat coming his way about if McInnes is going to take over. Is he going to be a director of football one day soon? Is he going to coach the Eagles all the way through this year? What did you make of it?
I found the reaction to it. Look, I listened to it. Seibold's obviously an intelligent guy. Okay. One, I was concerned that he sort of went to that level, but two, I sort of admired the fact that he sort of put it all in his perspective there and just said, you know what, it's a game of footy. And I'm amused by the reaction to it because a lot of people in the rugby league world are just like, they're almost insulted by it. How do you sit there and try and trivialise rugby league by comparing it to these sorts of things? But that's the truth.
Yeah, it is.
It's a game of footy. You know what I mean? Like, Adam, I've been to Iraq and places like that, okay? And earthquakes, mine collapses, all sorts of things. So in my career as a journalist. So I've seen that when you lose a game of footy, it's upsetting. Yeah, you wish you'd done better. But you know what? It's no one's taking your house off you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to a funeral next week. Okay, so I like the fact that Seibold sort of basically put it all in its place. But I've been highly amused by the reaction to it, and everybody, just sort of stunned by it. Like, how can he say that? Yeah, the fact is, kids go to war at 18. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about pressure.
Some at 12.
Yeah, but you talk about pressure. Like, you look at all our forefathers, World War I and II.
Yeah.
Our grandfathers, they were going to war at 18, 19, 20. Rifle in their hands, shooting at men on the other side. Losing a game of footy is not that bad, is it?
Yeah, about as bad as it gets in rugby league is Nathan Brown coming off the back fence and getting knocked off his two legs.
Exactly, mate. So, and if you lose a couple of games in a row, so be it. But sun's up tomorrow.
Exactly. Well, not in Sydney this week. Rain bomb. Terrific. Last one, mate. NRLW launched on Monday.
Yeah, well done.
It's great to see. It's just around the corner. It starts on Thursday night at Shark Park. But NRL, it's this tricky thing, especially with the emergence of professional women's sport, which is great. It gives so many opportunities for young girls to aspire to get there one day. I've seen the Matildas take off, the women's cricket team. Rugby league, I reckon, is doing a pretty good job ahead of the AFL. AFL expanded way too quickly.
Yeah.
Is that what rugby league's got to be careful with?
Absolutely. Look, they've gone to 12 teams now. So 2 more teams come in this year. The Warriors come back to the competition. The Bulldogs come into the competition. The infrastructure down below is not there. The development down below is not there. And we're in a rush to get there. I understand the rush. It's a public perception thing. That's be seen as treating everybody equal. That's being equality, all that sort of business. The NRL's going down that road very quickly to try and avoid that criticism. But if they do get to suddenly they're going to 12 teams. We've all been sitting here complaining or questioning the move to go from 17 to 19 teams in the NRL, which has all these infrastructures in place. Okay, which has thousands more men playing than women. And we questioned there whether there's going to be enough depth to maintain the quality of the competition. You're not allowed to say that about the women's competition. The NRL, they look down their nose, do not bring that up. The fact is, it is a genuine concern, and the worst thing that the NRL can do is to, particularly now the games are on TV, is to broaden the competition enough that when people sit down and watch it go, oh, this is horrible, because there are people playing who are not at that level.
And they're not professional. They don't have that professional background. You'd rather a smaller pool of players all on professional deals rather than part-timers everywhere, with all due respect.
It just maintains the quality of the competition. And it's funny, though, because you're allowed to question it with the men going from 17 to 19, but you're not allowed to question it with the women going from 10 to 12, and very quickly they'll be pushing 12 to 17. Okay. The only thing reason they haven't done it now is because that is their private concern, which they won't articulate. Okay, getting there too quickly. But look, I think the women, I love their collision in their game. So they are fast tracking really, really well. Yeah. But I love just how you can have one conversation about the men, but you're not allowed to have the same conversation about the women because that's seen as being biased, and you don't like the women's game.
No, which is not the case, and we just talked about it then. We walked and chewed gum there.
You know what's fascinating? You know what's fascinating about that is when you have these kinds of discussions, when you talk to the women players and people around the women's game, and you talk to the NRL, what they desire most is to be treated and spoken about, not as this women's game anomaly, but it's just a game.
It's a game of footy.
A game of footy, and be treated and spoken about like the men get spoken about. Yet when you do, you're open for criticism. It's a funny one, because if you say, look, like you can say about a player, look, I'm going to go dangerous here. If you say about a man player, geez, he's carrying weight, this bloke, he needs to lose weight. Okay, junior baller, right? Jason Rolls comes in, mate, you've got to get 10 kilos off. Dare you to say that about one of the NRLW players?
which is just life.
You know what I mean?
Is just life.
But then it's you're attacking the anyway. Look.
But the big thing for me is that I would love to see as many professional players in the women's game as possible, because that will make the product better. But you can't do that by spreading the resources so thin.
They've saved themselves.
Go with what you have.
They've saved themselves a little bit here because they've gone and got rugby union women players. Okay, so and the games can cross over, similar skill set, obviously not exactly the same, but so they've sort of taken a bit of a shortcut there. So that's going to save them in this instance. But let's just be careful. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, and let's just be careful about getting there too quickly, because you don't want to ruin it along the way by getting there too fast and just turning the game into something that's unwatchable. Well,
the Origin series was very watchable, and that was out of season, so the NRLW season will be very watchable. Kenty, catch you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Cheers, mate.